Hey everybody, we are live officially. Gonna get started in a few minutes here as folks are trickling in, so thank you for joining us. And we will get our guest up on stage in just a minute here. Super excited about our conversation today for a bunch of different reasons. And I think that we will, oh, here we go. We've got a couple people trickling in here and just gonna get our guest up on stage. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Here we go. Hey.
Hello.
How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I'm doing good, ready to go.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm just gonna do a little introduction to get people oriented, and then we'll jump right
Cool.
into it. So,
Awesome.
hey everybody, thanks for joining us. For those of you who are just coming in now, I'm Rachel Renock. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wethos, which is a platform that helps freelancers form what we're calling virtual studios. So our software makes it really easy to price complex projects and then split payments with collaborators. Every week, I interview a different creative entrepreneur about their journey taking the leap. And today's guest, super excited, is Micah Woods. I'm saying that right? Just want to make sure.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Micah is a Los Angeles-based entrepreneur, and they run a web design studio called OK Micah. By the way, I just have to say that I'm obsessed with your website. We're going to talk about that. As a queer person, they've rooted their business in creating space for LGBTQIA plus founders and creatives. Micah, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. Would love to just hear a little bit more from you about your journey to starting your business and how it's evolved.
Totally. Yeah. So I'm definitely a pandemic entrepreneur, as I like to call it. I was working in the music industry pre-pandemic, and then pandemic hit, and the music industry kind of tanked because there was no need for live music. And I was like, what am I gonna do? So I had always loved design and that was what I was doing in the industry anyways. And so I felt that it was like time for me to branch out on my own. And so I started freelancing a little bit and just word of mouth friends, and quickly realized that the people that I loved working with the most were the people in the LGBTQIA plus community that I'm a part of. And so I realized that nobody was creating space for them in sort of the entrepreneur world. And I wanted to give them what I always wished that I had when it came to design and sort of like getting rid of that sort of like tech bro world. And being a safe space to like have meetings where it's like, did you watch Drag Race last night? Like, and just to be able to like have a more just like camaraderie and sense of community, and to be able to allow them to show up as themselves, and to also help them realize that it's like okay for them to be proud of their identity in their business, and that customers and users and people are attracted to that for that reason and want to see that. So that's kind of how things got going, and it's just sort of snowballed from there. And I've been going almost 2 years strong now, and it's amazing. And I just keep working with such really awesome clients and continuing to grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I imagine that it's hard to find, people to work with that make you feel really understood that quickly. And so imagine like that is a really powerful thing for your clients that is very unique to you and to your brand and to what you're doing. And so I imagine like that feeling must be just amazing. To feel understood, I think, is like really powerful.
Yeah, and I think it goes both ways too. Like it's for me as well to feel like they see me for who I am on top of me seeing them for who they are. So it's like a very symbiotic community relationship, which is nice.
Yeah, I love that. And your mission is really powerful too. And you said you have these words on your website, which I thought were really great, like demystify and demasculinize the design process, which is like, let's unpack that. I'm thrilled about it. So can you share a little bit more about, why you're passionate about this, and then how this actually comes to life in your work day to day?
Yeah, so I think it really started with wanting to demasculinize the design process. I think that especially in the web design world, it is a male dominated industry. And it was really frustrating for me to be in meetings where I was being misgendered and mispronounced, and feeling like there wasn't, even when I would communicate like, hey, that actually I don't use those pronouns, please don't say that, or like please don't call me bro, I don't identify with that. And they would be offended that I was creating that boundary. So for me, I realized that it was really important in that process, which is from beginning to end, design, development, all of it, to be able to take away from that and to create an emotional feeling of design that communicates not just the like boring, stale, masculine, sort of like strong, and to create something that feels much more like the full spectrum of emotion in design. And so I think that that comes to play, and I think that's why a lot of my clients choose to work with me, is because they get that feeling when they look at my work and they see that I'm bringing something different that is not the stereotypical agency sort of snobby like tech bro vibe to what I create. And I think something that I learned also through working with such amazing clients is the need to demystify the design process, because
Totally.
I think a lot of times as designers we forget that they don't know what we're talking about most of the time. So it's like so important to like keep things at like not a kindergarten level, but kind of like you are talking to people who don't know what kerning is, right? So it's
Right.
like important to like communicate and be able to help them understand exactly what that design process is and what you're doing and why certain things are important and why the decisions you're making are important and how they're in line with their vision for their business, and so that they aren't feeling alone in that process and they feel like it's actually a collaboration and that they understand why decisions are being made, so that when they are taking ownership of it after I've done my work, they can speak to it in a way that's totally in line with their brand ethos.
Yeah, that's incredible. And too, and I feel like what I hear you saying too is that these things are also kind of intertwined together. Like the fact is that if the same people are creating the same work over and over and over again, then you're going to end up in a situation where not only is it, sort of like dry and not creative and kind of the like very masculine, and then like these things sort of these designs or these styles, I guess, get set, and then everybody starts doing that, and then they do it again, and then everybody starts doing that. And so I think part of that too is like, in order to lead the pack, it behooves them to keep things a mystery as well.
Totally.
And so like by not lifting the veil on how things are done, or how we think through these things, or even just jargon, like the language barrier, like a lot of that is used to maintain power, And so I think there's so much accessibility in what you're doing, and it's really powerful that you've recognize that these things are together and that they have to be like sort of pried apart and addressed, and it's just really, really important work, and I just appreciate it.
Thanks. And I think it's too like, kind of the tagline of OK Micah is like breaking the binary. And I think that's exactly what you're speaking to, of like breaking it down and like breaking away from like what's expected and like what's normal, and like actually doing things differently for a reason, and doing them to actually support and lift rather than to diminish and take power over.
Totally. Yeah, totally agree. And so when I worked in advertising, we had so like all the teams were homogeneous, and it was really frustrating. Mainly I would say like the gender split was okay, but like race was just like literally all white people. And it honestly, like I watched this lead to worse decisions, like way worse decision making. And so can you help everybody sort of understand, I'm a big proponent of, diverse teams create better work, like period. Because you're bringing these different perspectives to the table, and if you only have one side of a story, how is that ever going to be dynamic at all? So I'm curious, like, just to hear from you, what's your perspective on why, building a more inclusive brand is leading to actually like better business outcomes and is a better business strategy overall?
Totally. I think that it's a common misconception that there's a need to like market to the majority, which is ironic because it's not the majority. So I think that a lot of business owners come to me and they think that they need to target this because that's what like corporations are targeting. But the reality is, when you start to include more voices and to create more space for the actual people that want to be a part of your business and want to be a brand ambassador for you, you actually end up having stronger connections with your customer, and therefore creating genuine relationships that they're just only going to uplift you, and you're just going to see, revenue, right? That's what every business owner wants. And I think that it's been sort of a realization in my clients of like, oh, we didn't realize that if we actually opened space for people and started like noticing them and paying attention to them and catering to them, that they would show up. Because I think there's so much fear that they won't show up, but the reality is that most minorities are wanting to show up and are looking for a reason to show up. And so if you give it to them, they're going to go die hard for you. I think, you know, I recently watched a documentary where the CEO of FX, the TV network, he realized that they weren't carving any space for women creators. And so he made it his mission to start hiring at least 51% of women in writing and creative roles. And they saw the biggest spike in not only revenue, but in views. And it's like, he was like, why did it take us so long to realize that if we include these voices and these people who haven't been even given opportunities and finally create space for them, that look at how much better our content is and how much, like, literally it's just like been a renaissance for them because they're creating space. And I think that's exactly what I try to convince my clients to realize is like, and what I try to do in my business as well, is to include as many people and as many voices and ideas, because there's so many people that aren't being given opportunities to use their amazing brain power, that when you take advantage of that, not take advantage in a good way, right? To like use it and to like give them opportunities, you just start to see such incredible work.
Yeah. I imagine, like, I always think about it. There, not only is there such an opportunity to unlock, like, the potential and talent, but the economic potential and the unlocking there is totally hand in hand. And I think, like, I saw this so much in advertising. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where they were like, well, that demographic doesn't really buy our product. And I'm like, well, you're not putting them in your commercials or your ads or anything like that. Like, why would they want to engage with your product? And so it's just this stupid cycle, literally, that's just like, feels kind of obvious, but at the same time, people have a hard time sort of like shifting, like, you know, what they've seen for so long. And that in and of itself, I guess, is the issue.
Yeah, I think it's like a fear of having never tried it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you know, that doesn't work. And it's like, did you try to see if it works? No, you just assume that it doesn't work because white men have been telling you it doesn't work for however long. So let's take that risk. And I think that everybody that ends up taking that risk is like, we were dumb to wait this long.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you're like, oh God, like what have we been doing? It's like, yes, this is the epiphany we're here for.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit and get technical, because we get a lot of these questions from folks who are starting their own businesses, especially right now. You know, a lot of layoffs going on. Some people are maybe going freelance not by choice. I was clicking around your website and I saw that there was a bunch, or not a bunch actually, like 3 or 4 really well thought out packages that you put together. And I'm curious, you've been doing this for, like, I think you said 2 years now. How did you, I'm sure people come to you for like an array of crazy things. How did you land on the services that you offer? And then how do you handle requests if they do come in that's sort of outside of those packages? And like, what's your method for, you know, saying no, as we love to do?
Yeah, I think that those packages came from noticing what people wanted from me, as well as what I wanted to do. So I think it was a lot of trial and error in the beginning of like, I'll do anything. What do you need? Yes, I got you. You know, I didn't know what to charge. It was just kind of like shots in the dark and like, hopefully this works. Like, I can do that. Like, yeah, sure, I can do that without knowing that I could do it. It was just like, make it happen. And I think it took probably like 4 or 5 months to realize, okay, here's what I love. Here's what I enjoy doing, and here's what people are wanting me to do. So let's actually lay out exactly what that looks like and what I've been doing and what's been working and what I added to certain things that they didn't need really. And so it's like, okay, we can get rid of that. Oh, I think they might like this. Like, let's add this little bonus. Oh, this client wanted this. That's something I should be offering to all my clients. And maybe they don't come to me saying they need that, but I know they need it. So I think that's sort of where I landed on with my packages, and like was really easy for me to lay down exactly what was included and what wasn't. And I think how I handle when people come to me for random requests and it's not something I want to do, it's tapping into my network and being like, hey, this client needs this. I don't want to do it, but I'm happy to white label it through me. So like, I'll just give you exactly what they're going to pay me. You do the work, you get the money. But it's like, OK Micah did it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That is like what we see all the time as what we would call like a virtual studio, basically, which is that like, you know, you're pulling in different collaborators and subcontractors really, and that helps you scale your business up more effectively. And it's like
Totally.
this kind of weird murky thing where it's sort of like a weird open secret kind of that a lot of people are doing this, but like we don't talk about it that much. But like the big agencies, this is all they do. Like you get that chief creative officer that pitches you, and then like you will never see that guy again. So I think like I don't know, it feels like a something that I'm seeing, and it's so powerful because what you're doing, what I see is like you're creating jobs for your community, and that
Mm-hmm.
is like direct impact, which is so cool. And I'm sure that people are really grateful to even be able to like have a bunch of those opportunities. So that's such a like a awesome inflection point for your business.
Yeah, and I think it's true. Like, this is how big agencies become big agencies. And,
Yeah.
you know, I've done work for big agencies who have reached out to me and like had me do stuff on the side and contracted out to me. And so it was kind of like, wait a minute, I could be doing
Yeah.
that. And I could be like, I have people coming in that maybe I don't necessarily have the time for, but I know my friend Molly's looking for work right now and she's so talented. So why not give it to her and like create, you're right, creating jobs for my people and the people that I even just find virtually who I'm like, wow, you're so talented. Like, you should take this job and like do it for me because I don't have time.
Yeah, and that's like such a it's actually just really important in general because it's like sort of an informal mentorship in a way. You know, and people can't get
Yeah,
that when a lot of the time when they're on the freelance path and not a traditional in like a traditional environment.
that's
Um,
so true. I think that it's like freelance is so different because you don't have that agency environment of like learning from other people. So I think the best thing, our best resource is other freelancers and to collaborate together and see like, oh, how are you doing this? And I think that that's something like anybody watching, like my DMs are always open. Like I love answering questions. I'm here for you. I got you. Ask me pricing, anything. Like nothing's a secret when it comes to business, in my opinion.
oh, I love that. That's like so helpful for everybody, honestly. And I always say I'm like, if we don't share our rates with each other, then that just gives clients more power to say like, if you won't do it for $5, I'll find somebody who will. And it's like those days are done now. Like we're
Yeah,
not doing that anymore.
no more of
No
that.
more of that. Um, yeah, in fact, actually, I really appreciated the way that you set up your FAQs on your website. And I was looking through just like some of the things around payments and payment installments. Something we hear a lot from people on our platform is, you know, they're chasing down invoices or this payment is late or can I bill up front? Cash flow's a nightmare, honestly. So I really love the way that you framed it. And you basically have what I understand to be like a payment plan, and people
Mhm.
can provide, or people who opt out of that payment plan who just pay, I think, totally upfront, they get a $500 discount to opt out of that instead of this sort of default assumption I think that we typically do with payment cycles, which is like you'll pay me in installments because that's sort of like what everybody is kind of does by default, I suppose, and you sort of flip that
Yeah.
on its head. So can you walk us through what led to that idea, I guess, and if you would suggest that others give it a try?
Yeah, I think what led to it was that exact frustration of like chasing down invoices and feeling so frustrated by being taken advantage of when it came to being a freelancer and feeling like, you know, oh, he's just a contractor, like we'll pay him when we pay him. And it's like, well, no, I'm actually running a full business and like I deserve to be paid the same way you deserve to be paid as an entrepreneur. And it felt like, why am I allowing my clients to dictate when I get paid and like not taking advantage of the fact that like I'm in control and I can make the rules and I can set the boundaries. And if they don't follow those boundaries, then like there's the door. Sorry about
Yeah.
it. You know, and so I think that's where that came from. And I absolutely implore everybody to implement that because it will just make your life so much easier. And it also just helps with cash flow
Yeah.
and like constant revenue, like rather than feeling like going through the sort of like feast famine of
Oof.
freelance,
Yeah.
it allows you to just have consistent income, which is something I never thought that I would have as a freelance slash agency owner, and finally have for the first time in my life, like true financial freedom to like be able to take 4 days off if I want to and go on a vacation and be able to like live life happily and not be chasing down clients all the time to pay me because we're busy as it is. We don't want to be doing that. Like we've got,
Yeah.
you know, so much more to do and so much more energy to put into our creative processes that we shouldn't be wasting that energy just trying to get paid.
I couldn't agree more. And I think like, I always say this too, I'm like, one thing that I don't know why clients don't understand sometimes is like, if I'm sitting here worried about how I'm going to pay my rent, how do you think I'm performing for you? Like how good is my work at that point, right? Like worrying about money is exhausting because it's like literally your livelihood. So it seems like kind of a no-brainer. And I think the tides are sort of shifting. And, you know, when you look at other types of businesses, in every other type of business, like if you come into my coffee shop and you don't want to pay $5 for a cup of coffee, like there's the door. We're not negotiating at the cash register. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, because this has this sort of employer-employee sort of dynamic to it, there is like a baked in sort of power dynamic there that is different from any other kind of business, where the business owner, effectively, to your point, what you're doing is exactly what a business owner should do, which is like, my business, my rules. I'm not, you know, you're not an employee of somebody. So like I think like that mindset shift is super important.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the coffee shop, because that's exactly how I look at it. Is like, these are my prices. If that doesn't work for you, I understand, but I can't, you know, I like to always say that like the clients that get discounts from me are the clients that I've been working with for a long time and that are consistently coming to me and consistently sending people to me. But like, if it's our first time working together, I don't want to say that I don't need you, but like, if you don't see the value in my work, I don't need you. Like, and I don't want you, to be honest, because I know what I'm worth and I know what I'm capable of. And if you aren't willing to pay that, good luck.
Yeah. And honestly, I found that like the more I say no, the more people want like to come back and be like, well, fine, maybe we can. Wait a minute. I'm like,
and I think they recognize, like, when you are firm in your beliefs and what you know that you bring to the table, and it's sort of a cat and mouse game sometimes in those discovery calls of they're like, it's like, who's going to name their price first? But when you go into it knowing your prices and knowing what you're bringing to the table, and if they're like, oh, and you're like, okay, great, they're like, wait a minute, oh, so he's not going to budge, one, and two, he is worth this because this is how he runs his business, right? So let's go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I always found that having that conversation up front was way better in sales wise, like both for like ridding, you know, like filtering out people who weren't really serious. And honestly, I find that the client side, like they want to get to a price quickly too. Like they want to be able to know, what are we thinking here? Like, what's the range we've got going on? Like, so like they're a little bit in the dark as well. And I found that like being upfront about that stuff and saying like, here's how we think about it, you know, small, medium, large, or whatever the sort of setup is, helped alleviate that so that they could focus on actually talking about like, how are we going to solve this problem that's keeping you up at night right now?
Yeah. And I think too, like, we are so used to, with technology, getting an immediate price for stuff. Like, we never go on to an e-commerce site and it's like, click here to find out the price. It's like the price is there. So I think that the same thing happens with, I think we forget as creatives that people do want that immediate satisfaction and to know what they're getting into. Like, we know when we're walking into a restaurant or a coffee shop, we can look at the prices and see if it's something that we want to invest in. So I think that it's important that business owners get the same from us as creatives.
Amazing. Well, I may or may not have something in the works that could help with this. That's for later. So speaking of pricing, so we, on our platform, we have a huge database of pre-priced like scopes and services. And basically we make those pricing recommendations based on like tens of thousands of data points of how people are pricing things. We actually started that by releasing all of our own pricing data when we launched the software from our own freelance studio. I have opinions about, you know, flat rate, hourly, packages, like a million ways to do it. What's your take? How do you think about billing, and what are the pros and cons of the different types of things that maybe you've tried?
Yeah, I think in the beginning I thought hourly was the move, because that's what I was coming from, was being an hourly employee. So I was like, okay, cool, hourly, I got this. But I quickly realized that like how much time I was not spending just doing work, but just thinking about it. It's like, can I charge them for that? And like how much of just like the internal processes and sort of like the value of just like my ideas at all. There's value there. It's not really just something that I can like be paid by the hour for. So I actually, it's so funny. I used your database in the beginning when I was like, how do I price like this? Like I've never, it helped me so much. So I will
Amazing.
say,
I
like,
love that.
if you are confused about how to price things, like you've got to use that because it is an amazing starting point for your business. And so I definitely am a firm believer in like value-based pricing. So what I consider with that is like starting with a flat rate, right? So like I know my minimum for a project and then deciding based on what I'm bringing to the table as well as who the company is. So if the small mom and pop shop down the street comes to me wanting a website, I'm not going to charge them the same as if Apple came to me charging for the website, because Apple is going to be making millions of dollars from the work that I'm doing.
Exactly.
Whereas
Yeah.
the small mom and pop shop, you know, is not going to get that return on ROI as fast. Return on investment is not going to get that ROI as fast as Apple would. So I think it's super important to consider that, but also to consider that the more work that I do, the more my value rises. So that's when my prices increase and change with the more experience I have, because I know that I'm bringing more to the table. And so it's really important to always recognize what I'm amazing at and how I deserve to be paid more as I gain more experience, because the same thing's happening in agencies. They're hiring junior designers and paying smaller amounts, and then the person that's been doing it for 10 years is definitely getting paid more. So we as creatives and freelancers have to remember that the more work and experience we have, the more we deserve to be paid.
Yeah. Oh man, amen. Put that on a t-shirt. Oh my God, I will buy it. Yeah, I feel like there's so much around pricing, and I also found in earlier days when I was freelancing that hourly was better, mainly because I was sort of being paid to like learn, like Google my way through things. And
Yes.
so it actually ended up being like less complicated and better to be able to bill by the hour then. But yeah, there's definitely an
Yeah.
inflection point, I think, where you start to realize like, wait a minute, I'm getting faster and everything I've just learned is enabling me to do this in half the time that I used to do it. And I think that's
Right.
where switching over makes sense. And I really appreciate what you said about, you know, putting a flat rate together and then the value to the client. Like that's the other issue I have with the hourly rate is like, you can't put a price tag on a human person.
Yes.
That's crazy. And you also can't
Yeah.
put a price tag on time, because time's the only thing no one can get back. Like no
Right.
one can get that back. So
Yeah.
I feel like the shifting away from that and to communicate to the client like more so about the value that you're providing, the outcome that they're looking for. And it is so much more dependent on the size of that client and the budget that they have and the initiative, rather than just saying like, I am whatever, $60 an hour, period. Like I wish it were that easy, but like it just simply isn't. And I really appreciate the way that you frame that when you talk to your clients about it.
Yeah, and I think too, you reminded me exactly that of in the beginning. Yeah, it might take me 4 hours to figure out how to fix a bug on a website, whereas
Totally.
now I know I can do it in 10 minutes. So I think it's that concept of like, I always see there's like a kind of famous meme where it's like a receipt and it's like cutting the red wire 99 cents, knowing which wire to cut $10,000, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
we deserve to be paid for the work that we've done to know how to do that quickly. And it's not like fair to us with the experience to still be charging hourly when what used to take us 4 hours, we can do in maybe 10 minutes.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And you, with like from a flat rate perspective, I feel like raising the prices makes sense. And I've been toying around with this sort of phrasing to the phrase like know your worth feels like a little shamey to me right now. And so I'm like, maybe this is about like learning your worth and like relearning your worth and like just you're basically constantly learning your worth at each sort of inflection point. And that's where you're reassessing essentially.
Yeah, because it's always changing and you're always growing. So, you know, I reevaluate my pricing, you know, once a month, once every 2 months, and really think about what's working, what's not working. Should I keep including this in packages? What feels like the clients aren't really getting value from, what can I add more value to, and then raise prices in this way. And I think so it's exact, because yeah, know your worth is kind of like the cliche, like cursive t-shirt. I love learning your worth. I feel like that would be like cool on a t-shirt. Like I'm always learning my worth, because that's what we should be doing as creatives.
Yeah. And yeah, and like the knowing your worth feels like I need to be like at worth $1 million an hour immediately. And it's like forever.
Right.
And that's again just like too black and white for what it really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question.
Okay.
Always ask this for folks. So I mentioned this earlier, but of course, like there's a potential recession looming. I don't know, like this bank CEO thinks there is one. That other bank CEO is like, nah, we're good. So I don't really know. But point being, there's been recently a good wave of layoffs, unfortunately, because there was a huge wave of hiring like 6 months ago. And that is fucked up. So some folks we've talked to recently are freelance now, not necessarily by choice, but here we are.
Yeah.
Sometimes life makes decisions for you. And I felt that firsthand. So do you have any advice for people looking to take the leap either on purpose, like wanting to actually start a freelance business, or even for people who maybe are here not by choice and they're not even sure, like, oh God, like where do I start? How do I pick myself up and move forward?
Yeah. I think for the people who are considering it and it's something that they're maybe deciding they want to do and choosing to go into, I would say don't rush, because you might not like it. So start freelancing on the side while keeping your job, and see if it's something that you want to work towards actually choosing and being like, okay, I'm at this point where now I've got the work. I know that I enjoy this. I want to work for myself. I don't want to work for somebody else anymore. That's the point in which you can decide, okay, I'm going to become a freelancer now. Because I think a lot of times people just like take the leap and then they're like, wait, this isn't for me. I have friends that it's happened. I've seen it happen where it's confusing, it's difficult. And when you have a choice to not go through that, I would say take your time and don't rush into it, and to just like be really methodical about it. And for the people who are sort of being thrusted into it and not having a choice, I was there. I'm with you. I know how difficult it can be, but if you just keep going and just totally put 100% trust into yourself and work really hard, you will get to that point where you love the freedom and you're able to decide how you want to work and how you want your life to be, and have total freedom to just like be the happiest employee for yourself. Because that's kind of the best part about freelancing is like, if you want to sleep in till noon tomorrow, guess what? You can. So I think that my advice to people who are sort of being thrusted into it is enjoy that piece of it. Enjoy the fact that you're getting to decide and being able to take control over your life. And yes, it might feel like life's out of control because you were thrusted into this, but if you can just take a step back and realize, hey, I actually for the first time have control over what I want, you got to revel in that and enjoy it, because that is difficult to realize that you have, but once you do, you just like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I've heard from a lot of friends and a lot of people who are going through this right now that, and even in the last 2 years, they're starting to sort of realize like, hey, you know, having a full-time job maybe wasn't as stable as I thought it was, or nearly more, like way more stable than maybe being independent on my own. And in fact, actually, by being independent, I have more control over my outcome and what I do and where I go. And that is like, seems obvious when you look back at it, but seeing people like sort of reckon with that and realize that, and seeing the way that we're, you know, trying to get our other systems to catch up to that, you know, with healthcare and other things that people need, like safety nets. You know, I think it'll be a couple sort of like painful years, but I think that we are going to come out on the other side of a lot of this in a much better place, honestly, in a much brighter future of work. And I think what you're doing and what you've described and what you've been able to do in the last 2 years alone is just like a straight up testament to that. So thank you so much for that and for sharing. And thank you for joining us. If people want to follow along or they want to hit you up, where can they do that?
Instagram, OK Micah. TikTok, OK Micah. Twitter, OK Micah. OKMicah.com.
Love it.
Hit me up. Like, it's all OK Micah, and I would love to hear from you. I'm here for advice. Hit me up, call my number. I got you. Send me an email, say what's up. And I'm a community guy, so I love creating community. And if you're looking for that community as a creative and a freelancer, I got you.
Love that. Thank you so much again. Everybody, have a great night. We will be back next time with an episode of Leap. Thank you again, Micah. OK Micah's got like, that's like sticky. That's like, you know, that makes me want to like say that over and over again.
Yes, I love it.
I have ADHD, so I'm like,
no, it's perfect. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast and so much fun, and so grateful to be here.
Amazing. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you next time.
Bye.